Welcome back to another fabulous installment of Meet the Artist, the series put on by the Tucson Gallery inside of the Proper Shops here in downtown Tucson, 300 East Congress, right across the street from the fabulous and venerable Hotel Congress. Each and every week, we have a different artist come in and do a live meet and greet with their fans. And then beforehand, we record this podcast and try to do it before the crowd gets too rowdy. Don't want to have an art riot on our hands, but we are excited to bring to you another artist today. And if you want to check out any of our past episodes or more information about the gallery or any of the artists that we have in the Tucson Gallery, head over to our website, thetucsongallery.com. But enough of the promo. Let's get into the good stuff here. We are joined today by, I think, the first time we've had a sculpturist on the show. We've got Adam Homan, or is that an official term? Are you a sculpturist?
I'm going to go with that. Sculpturist sounds good. A sculptor, probably. Sculptor.
Sculptor?
Yeah.
Sculpturist?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The metal artists tend to get called just a wide variety of things. Like when I'm at a show, it's like, are you a blacksmith? Are you a welder? Are you a metal artist? Are you a sculptor? It's all good.
So I think sculpturist is the word. I might have made that up, but we're gonna go with.
I think we should trend. Let's trend that.
We are gonna hashtag sculpturist if you're out there. So you've kind of given away the secret here, but your sculptures are they tend to be made of metal-ish type materials.
Yes, mostly metal, steel, mostly stainless steel. Anything I can scavenge, gears, old vintage things, typewriters, cameras, you name it. I'm into it. I like finding interesting things and incorporating them into my work.
Yeah, I've seen tools and chains, all kinds of things that normally I would either step over or be looking to discard, and you're like, no.
It's interesting when I go into a store or some kind of a recycling place, and I see a wrench or something. I don't see wrenches anymore. I see robot arms and Roadrunner legs and that whole thing. So yeah.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Then, and if you haven't seen Adam's work, you've got to head over to our website. Check it out. You'll get a really fabulous look at it, and you're all over town, so people probably have run into you at some event. But do you see the you don't see the parts, you see the whole. So when you look at it, you see a pair of ice grips, you immediately know, hey, that's actually a part of something.
Yeah, I don't ever find an object and think, I got to make something around that. I always see parts. So if I'm making, let's say, a Roadrunner, I'm never going to make it out of a gear that I like. It's always going to be, does that gear fit the Roadrunner? So a lot of guys will find a gear and say, I got to make something out of this. I'm the other way around. I'm like, I got to make a Roadrunner and I got to use these parts if they fit organically into the piece. So I kind of work from that perspective.
And how long have you been creating art in this fashion?
We figure it's about 27 years now, probably full-time about 25. So, I started in the late 90s, mid-late 90s, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I kind of figured it out as I went. I had a couple family members that knew how to weld, so I got the basics down, and then I just started running with it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I walked into a gallery in Bisbee with some Polaroids and showed them, and they're like, all right, bring it down. And they called me a week later, stuff sold, bring more. And then it started snowballing from there. And then when I got into the art shows, that's when I was like, oh, I can actually maybe make a living at this. And it just took off.
So there wasn't a foundation, like you weren't out putting up fences for people or installing doors, and you're like, hey, I can turn into art. You just woke up and said, I want to use hot flame and create art?
Well, when I first started, I was just making characters and the creatures that, inhabited my imagination. And then I did do some, just for money, I would do security doors and gates and things like that. So that was like good training in the sense that you had to actually know how to do decent welds and make sure everything's going to hold together. And I would go and install doors and that whole business. It was the money was okay, but it wasn't for me as far as excitement. So
my business partners in this, Tony Randair, and they're real estate agents. I bet they're all over town. And this house is really special because it has an Adam Homan door. The swinging gate was put in here years ago by.
This is where Adam had his nervous breakdown because the gate was a half an inch off on one side.
Are you a perfectionist in that regard?
I'm really not, and that's the problem with the gates and stuff, because you have to be a perfectionist, and it doesn't come natural to me. With sculpture, it's great because you can just kind of wing everything. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Just put a little note on the gate. Just lift it up a little bit, and it'll be fine.
Just jiggle it. It'll be all right.
So you get into art. Do you remember what the first sort of creation was that was artistic?
The first thing I did was a gargoyle, and I remember making the gargoyle and getting done with it. I mean, it took me like a week to make this thing, and it was the first thing I stepped back at and looked at it objectively and thought, this is good. I feel like this is pretty cool. And that gargoyle, actually, I sold it here at a gallery called Apparatus, I think, at the time. And it went to this gal, and she took it and she moved to Oregon. And then she got hired overseas in Japan, and she took it to Japan with her. And then I think Australia after that.
Your first piece?
My first piece to Australia. And then a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, I got a call from her. And she said, I'm retiring. I'm moving into an assisted living place. I don't have the room for it. Do you want it back? And I was just like, oh my gosh, yes, please. So I actually ended up getting that gargoyle back after about 25 years and a world tour. So now it's a permanent resident in our house. And it's kind of fun to look back and see that sort of thing.
Do you still look at it and say it's this work of craftsmanship that you remember? Or have you progressed and think,
I've definitely changed. But I do appreciate the work. Like I was approaching it from a different perspective then, and the piece still has character, and that's really what it's all about for me, is creating character and animation and giving it life. So I was pretty happy to see it.
And inside of the gallery, we've got a lot of, I would say, small and maybe medium-sized pieces. A lot of things that are countertop or desktop. Right. But I've seen your work. You've got like huge, like monolithic statues and things of that nature.
Yeah, I do. I do it all. I like creating small and large. I like the small in the sense that I can usually turn them out in a day, and there's a feeling of satisfaction. The big ones are more of a commitment, and then there's always the sale of the big ones tends to be a little slower than the small ones. Mm-hmm. So you got to find the right people in the right spot. But Tucson's been stepping up lately. Like my big stuff is really selling and finding homes, and man, I'm stoked about that. Like that's great.
We had someone actually come in. I think you were at one of the shows, but they came in and like, oh yeah, we know Adam really well. He's doing something. We're working with our landscape architect and designing our whole backyard, and we've got this idea for a piece, and Adam's helping us. But so they're like, their yard is going to be designed around whatever you end up creating.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that you heard from them, because I haven't heard from them lately, and I was wondering what was happening. So I'm glad that they're still interested.
There's definitely interest. It's the person helping them with their design is struggling, I guess, is what they were indicating.
Yeah, they've had a rough time with their designer, and I don't know what's going on there, but I can't wait to do the piece because it's going to be the coolest piece ever. So yeah,
that's but they're still interested.
Yes,
see if I run across any of your other clients here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I understand, or at least I've heard rumors that your family might be involved with this project, or your daughter might be helping, or?
I mean, they always helped. My family's, my dad is particularly went to all the shows with me when I was getting started and traveled all over the country doing these crazy art festivals. And so he's always been involved. He's in his, he's 80 now, so he kind of stays more local. My daughter is 11, and I'm just to the point now where I'm going to get her the gear she needs to start working in the shop. And I think she's interested. So I don't want to push it too hard, because kids will tend to, if you could push them too hard, they'll be like, no, I'm not doing that. And then my wife has always been super, super supportive and has helped me over the years at the shows, and her feedback and creativity are awesome.
Were you married when you were doing this, or did you get married after?
I got married after. Okay, so
she knew what she was getting into. It wasn't like you got married and said, by the way, I'm going to support the family by picking up scrap metal. and turning them into robots.
Yeah, that turns the whole game around when you're married and you're the sole provider for, your wife and daughter. Like the monthly income depends on you, and you've got this crazy business of selling, robots and creatures and things like that. It takes a turn where it's essential that you have a smart business. And I'm not a natural businessman by any means, and kind of had to learn along the way here, because before that I was just picking art shows and traveling, and if I made money, great. If I didn't, it was okay. And now it's like, you better make this count,
because I understand kids eat every day.
They eat every day. I try to discourage that, but yeah, she demands it. So
well, she's 11, so you can start getting her with the acetylene torches and such, and get her out working. Did I use the right terminology there?
I do use an acetylene torch. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, throwing stuff out there.
I want to get you in the shop.
No, sorry. I saw the video of you, and it's the cool video, because you get to that little head flip and the mask comes down like Iron Man, and then you light up the torch.
It's funny. You get so used to wearing the gear. So I'm constantly in a helmet and a respirator and gloves and all the safety equipment. I'm really careful because I've seen the other metal artists with some pretty serious injuries and health issues over the years. And so I'm kind of vigilant about that. So one guy showed up at an art show. He was a metal artist, and he was missing his nose. So he actually cut his nose off by accident. We've seen some weird things, respiratory issues, and fingers. It's just, it's not for the faint of heart, working with metal.
Is there a large community of metal artists?
In Tucson, yeah. One thing that crossed my mind the other day was that, I went back and I did a show that I kind of began at. And when I started that show, there was a guy by the name of Ned Egan, and Stephen Dirks was doing work then too. And when I started, the metal dudes were so supportive. There was no competition. There was just sharing of knowledge and information, and you got to do this, you need this kind of equipment, you should do this show, you should do that show. I always appreciated that about Tucson. Really supportive metal people as far as that goes. So that was awesome.
And do you carry that forward? So are you helping others, or are you like, no, I'm in it now, so I got a family to feed? You guys stick to the acrylics.
No, I feel like the more the merrier, and I always encourage anybody that approaches me and has questions, or I give my information out freely. It's a good thing to share, and you give back that way too.
And I've seen several other metal artists in town as well, and even though it's the same concept, you can see a style.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's clear that this is an Adam Homan. When you look at that, it's not going to get confused with someone else.
Right.
So it's like any other art form. Everyone might use the same paint, but they're going to create something that's their vision.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. Like people that don't know steel work or metal work, they might not see distinctions, but when you definitely develop a style over, doing it for 27 years. And my style was kind of distinct right from the beginning. And I've kind of been grateful for that. I haven't run across too many people like me. There's a few guys out there that do similar stuff, but my stuff's different enough where we're not confused if you know what you're looking at. So,
and where in your mind do these creatures come from? Because you have really interesting compositions. One of the ones that's most popular in the gallery is a typewriter that is, it's a robot kind of writing its own story, and it's the typewriter base. And now that we're seeing all the stuff with like chatbots and AI and all of that, I'm just telling people this was like the prototype, right? Adam designed the first type, typed his own words. But was this your concept, or did you see something, or did someone come up to you?
I've always just been a fan of animation, and so when I loved the vintage typewriters and cameras, and I used to take typewriters apart and use their guts and stuff in my sculpture just because they're amazing. And then when I was really like, why not preserve these awesome pieces of technology and bring them to life and make them artwork? It was just a natural fit for me. So I got a whole children's book in my head about these characters walking around. So
Oh, interesting.
that's coming. I do have a degree in creative writing, so I should probably use it at some point.
I was going to ask you, so your stuff, it does tell a story, like with a typewriter, it's typing a story. And I would imagine you do different ones with different typewriters.
When I'm creating a piece, I'm always thinking like from that perspective, like what's my audience? How are they going to perceive it? What's the reaction? What's the feeling going to be when they look at it? And, I'm usually shooting for a smile or a good feeling or a laugh or thought provoking with some of the strong female figures I do. And so, I'm always thinking kind of like a writer in that sense, like how is my art going to be perceived by the audience?
It's interesting that you say that, because yes, the sort of male characters seem a little more goofy, but your female characters are really strong. They're focused. They're powerful.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, but
I always make sure that the female forms are strong and empowered. I think that's like super important to me. Like I think the sacred feminine has been trounced on for thousands of years, and now you see women, claiming their power and doing amazing things in the world. And man, I'm all for it. Like I think that's great. It's what we need, and we need a balance in society between masculine and feminine,
and robot.
And robots, of course, robots.
And do you sketch things out in advance, or do these just come together?
I'm a terrible sketch artist. Like it would do a injustice for me to sketch things out. So no, they just kind of come into my head. If I'm going to create like a horse or a roadrunner or something, I'm definitely going to look at some pictures to make sure I get anatomy right for that. But for the most part, like dragons or robots or the creatures I make, you can kind of just use your imagination and go wild.
Yeah, we're going to have to get you connected then with a graphic designer, an artist, because I do think you have a story to tell with your characters.
Definitely, yeah. I know when I was young, some of my biggest influences were stop motion animation, and I always loved that genre. And I remember seeing Clash of the Titans when I was a kid and just being fascinated about how they did that. And then the Imperial Walkers in Empire Strikes Back, like that stop motion animation was so cool, mixed with the new technology they were using with the motion capture cameras and all that stuff. It really, really blew me away. And that's really what got me into artwork, because I started studying the guys, the model makers, and all the guys behind the scenes that were doing that stuff. And I was really drawn to it and had my own creatures in my mind. And so, I walked out of Star Wars in 1977. And I just, from that point forward, I had to make my own stuff. It spurred creativity. And I mean, I've heard that so many times from so many people, like something happened with that time period and that movie, like it birthed a generation of creatives. And it was really an honor to meet Dennis Murin, who was one of my friends and clients. He was the guy. He was head of ILM for a while and did the stop motion on the Imperial Walkers.
Oh, wow.
And he was integral in bringing in computer technology into the industry. Like he found the guys to figure out how to do the Jurassic Park dinosaurs in CGI. And I mean, he's got like 9 Academy Awards. So like
he has an Adam Homan.
He's got a whole bunch of my stuff, and I got to go to his house and meet his wife, and he brought a bunch of the other guys in the industry over, and it was like one of those nights where I was just, this is it. It's not going to get any better.
Pack it up. I've hit my pinnacle.
Yeah, it is awesome, and he's such a cool dude, and has been really super super supportive. So like that was definitely a validation like early on, and a good experience.
Well, your stuff is very popular in the gallery. We have several different pieces, and people will ask, is this an original? And it is. We might have multiple roadrunners or cameras or typewriters. They all are unique and created by you individually, but you do have a theme and you kind of keep with them. Yeah, I mean, it's different than say a bronze artist who's got, a mold that they're making the piece each time. I've got to do each one by hand, and they're always different by default. So every one of them's a one of a kind in my mind, even if I'm doing the same style or whatever. So I don't have any vice grips, but I got a pipe wrench. So there you go. Exactly. There you go. You got a claw instead of a hand today. You've been extremely busy. So besides the Tucson Gallery, like where do people keep track of you? Facebook, Instagram? Facebook, Instagram are kind of my go-tos. I send out. Is it just Adam Homan, or is it Adam Homan? Facebook's Adam Homan Metal Sculpture or Adam Homan. I post on both. And then Instagram's, I think, Adam_Homan at Instagram. So and I'm around. I'm in obviously some galleries and online, and
yeah, I'm just honored to be in this gallery and being a part of the success of this Tucson experience here, because I think Tucson's full of like amazing creative people. I remember going to art shows all over the country. I'd be doing a show in Seattle, and I'd look at the list of where the other artists are from, and there's always like 4 or 5 from Tucson, and I never knew them. You know what I mean? Because I was busy doing art shows,
Right.
And now it's becoming different. There's a sense of community here developing that I'm kind of seeing and more being more of a part of, and I'm really cultivating that, and I want to support the arts here in Tucson the best I can. So, thanks for providing a space to do that.
Yeah, that was the concept. We wanted to not just have art, but create community, make accessibility, and have a wide range. When you come into the gallery, you will see some more well-known artists and some that are up and coming.
Right.
And then with our Meet the Artist events, the idea is to connect you with the public. And really, we find that a lot of times it's not just the public that comes, it's people that are trying to get into your artwork forms, or they've got questions, or, how did you do this, or how did you do that? So it really becomes that community feel, and we're excited about that.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Well, Adam, thank you very much
for
Tom. Being here. And if you want to learn any more about Adam's story or any of our other artists, we do a weekly podcast called Meet the Artist. You can get more information on our website, the TucsonGallery.com. There's also an events calendar when you can find out when everyone's going to be live. We've been doing the meet and greets on Thursdays for the first few months. And next month, which will be April of 2023, we're going to start doing some Fridays to see how that works out. But head over to the TucsonGallery.com for more information about all of those events and anything else that's coming up. We're doing a lot of fun stuff here in the gallery, and we're inside of the Proper Shops, which is a collective of different retailers, and they also are having fun and exciting things like wine tastings and agave tastings and painting classes and all kinds of stuff. So head over to the TucsonGallery.com for more information and spread the word. Let's help build this community of artists here in Tucson and make Adam's Tucson dreams come true.
I love it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Tom.